You know him from the Big Ten Network. You also know his acclaimed college career as a Michigan man, an All-American, Mackey Award winner. Welcoming in Jake Butt to the program once again, our buddy Jake. Jake, how you doing, man? Happy holidays. Hope everything's great with you and the family. The first thing I want to ask you is about a TikTok of yours I saw not too long ago. It's Jake Butt _88 on TikTok. With the college bowl season here, Jake, your name is brought up a lot with your devastating injury playing in the bowl game and it impacting your NFL status for the draft. And you had a very interesting TikTok explaining your feelings. So instead of other people talking about your injury, can you take us back to you playing in the bowl game, everything went down, and how you look back on that moment?
Yeah, so, I got hurt in that bowl game, and I think a lot of people point to that injury and say, hey, man, this is why you should never play in the bowl game. And, the funny thing is I don't regret my decision. I wouldn't change my decision. I had my reasons, and one of the reasons was I was voted captain by my teammates, and I felt the need to play in that bowl game because they, elected me as their leader, and I would never change that. But I do say that there's a cost to it. I think most people don't understand the full spectrum, so I'll kind of lay it out for you. Of course, for me, I was projected per my insurance policy as like a second-round pick, like an early second-round pick. When I got injured, I slipped to the first pick in the 5th round. So that was about a $4 million difference in terms of contract value. But it doesn't stop there. So not only is it that different. So when you go to the NFL and you're injured outside of your NFL team's facilities, you get put on NFI, meaning non-football injury, which is a different distinction than IR, which is what you commonly hear, injured reserve. And when you're on NFI, what that means is you make split salary. So my salary, all the years I was injured was cut by about over $100,000. So over the course of my contract, it was, a significant amount. You also the NFL teams don't have to pay you. So when I got injured, like the Broncos technically did not have to pay me because I was injured outside of the NFL. You don't get any benefits. So I didn't have any insurance. I didn't have dental. I didn't get a credited season, which affects my pension, my retirement. I didn't get a 401k match or anything. So the total cost of the injury goes far beyond just the contract value. All the secondary ripple effects, I mean, that probably had an effect of close to $500,000 in and of itself. So I say that, again, I wouldn't change my decision, but I think guys need to be fully informed about the potential cost of this, of what can happen. It's not just dropping in the draft.
Jake, that's one of the best breakdowns I've ever heard in terms of the injury. Respect your decision as to why you chose to play. Can you expand for people that are unfamiliar? They hear about the insurance policy. Now, are those things that generally only pay off if you choose never to return to football?
No, so there's two different. You have loss of value insurance, which means like if you slip in the draft and it's proven beyond shadow of a doubt that you dropped because of injury, then you'll collect on your loss of value. Guys also have that for like future contracts. So you can have insurance to say if you get injured when you're a free agent and you get less money, they'll pay that out. Then you have total and permanent disability, meaning if you get injured where you can never play again, those are separate insurance policies. So I paid whatever it was for the loss of value, and I paid a different sum for the total and permanent disability. In order to collect on the loss of value, it has to be proven that you dropped solely because of your injury. And that's where it gets dicey. Like not everybody collects on it. The other trick is so insurance policies are not taxed. So what happened is they had me slotted. They have the insurance companies, they have their own scout department. So they scout and say, we think you'd be blank pick in the draft. For me, they said, if I would have left after my junior season, they said I would have been the 35th pick in the draft. That equated to about a $6.5 million contract. Well, because it's not taxed, and we're taxed about 50%, they cut that contract value in half, so about $3.2 million. From there, you get paid the difference on your gross total contract value. So for me, I signed a $2.7 million deal. 3.2 to 2.7 is a $500,000 difference. I was paid a little bit less than that to make up for it. So But if I had been injured, if I had been slightly injured and I couldn't perform at the combine and I dropped, that wouldn't have paid. I was paid because clearly tearing my ACL in that bowl game affected my draft value, and they owed me money for that. But there's a lot of guys that get loss of value insurance, and I don't know that they should get it because, they probably never had a chance to collect anyways. So there's a lot of layers that go into this, as is to be expected with insurance, right?
Thank you for your complete transparency.
Yeah, no, Jake, that was the most detailed of how this whole process shakes out. And I think for a lot of our listeners now, they kind of understand what goes into this decision, why some players opt out or continue to play. Do want to get some field analysis from you, though, while we got you, because the line has not moved in Alabama and Michigan. And I think a lot of people expect Alabama to go off as a favorite, yet your Wolverines are still 1.5-point favorites over at DraftKings. The total's 44.5. How are you feeling now as we approach a few days out of this college football playoff game?
I feel understandably nervous, certainly excited to watch both games in the playoffs. I mean, it's going to be really, really, this is probably the most competitive we've had for the college football playoff since they went to the 4-team model. And then maybe you kind of hinted at it. Maybe the reason I'd be most confident is the fact that Vegas doesn't lose, and Vegas knows, and all the public money's on Alabama, and that line isn't moving. So maybe Vegas, maybe they know something that the public doesn't. So either way, man, this game is a toss-up. You can convince me either direction of which way this game's going to go. Certainly, you got a lot of layers to this of Saban versus Harbaugh, and can Harbaugh win a playoff game? You got Jalen Milroe versus J.J. McCarthy. It's going to be an excellent matchup, and, really as a fan of football, man, I can't wait to watch.
Jake, how concerned are you about Michigan's offense averaging only 284 yards per game in their last 4 games?
Yeah, I mean, you have to take that into consideration, but you also have to take into consideration, I think the truth is clearly J.J. McCarthy was injured. And I think this month off, in theory, should do him well, and he should, get healthy. I think he's going to have to run the ball in this game to help that. But look, the truth is I think Michigan's earned the right, and this is what Blake Corum said, they've earned the right to say, hey, we're the number 1 team in the country. I felt that they have been the best team in college football all year long. So certainly you got to take it into consideration. But I will say, overall, the big picture this year, Michigan's offense looks better this year than they have in any recent memory. So the challenge is, can you do it against a damn good football team in Alabama?
Jake, who is a comparable quarterback that Michigan has faced from a mobility standpoint that will put pressure on them, or did put pressure on them the way Milroe will with his legs?
I mean, they really haven't seen anybody like Jalen Milroe. There's not too many quarterbacks that are like Jalen Milroe. I mean, Rutgers has a guy in Gavin Wimsatt who's more of a runner, more of a dual threat guy, but he can't throw the ball, and he's not in the league that Jalen Milroe is. But here's the thing is when you look at running quarterbacks, what defensive coordinators always tell you is they're so stressful because they create an extra gap, and they create an extra gap to have to defend because the quarterback can run. It also forces you to make decisions when you're in passing coverage and zone coverage. Do you leave your man to come up and respect the quarterback run, or do you stay in coverage and let him run? The trick to that is do you have gap discipline defense? Do you play assignment sound defense? And that's exactly what Michigan's defense does. They're veteran at every position. They're deep at every position. The good thing is what you would really want to do here is you don't need to get a bunch of sacks. Your edge rushers need to be very disciplined and just rush off the outside shoulder of the tackle and keep him in the pocket, because the strength of Michigan's defense is the interior of their defensive line. So if those edge rushers could almost just hold the pocket, the interior guys are going to push it back into Jalen Milroe's lap. I think that's got to be the game plan here. And also, Michigan plays zone coverage, so you hear this thing called zone eyes. When you're in man coverage as a defensive back, your eyes are on the man you're covering. When you're in zone coverage, you're dropped into your zone and you have your eyes on the quarterback. That usually benefits teams when they're trying to stop quarterback run. Being in offensive meetings, what offensive coordinators and play callers would always say, when you're playing two-man, even to non-mobile quarterbacks, they tell you, don't be afraid to tuck it and run. So Michigan's defense is built to be able to handle this, so certainly it won't be.
All right, 5 seconds prediction. Michigan wins?
I got Michigan in a tight one, man. They need to force a turnover. That'll be the difference in this game.
That's Jake Butt. You see him on the Big Ten Network. We appreciate you joining us, Jake.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.